Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8. And my name is Julianne Peterson, and I am your host every Tuesday night for Zoom at 8. And I am super excited about tonight, as I am most Tuesday nights, to hear from this live conversation with, some experts in the industry. That's why we come to Zoom at 8, to hear from industry experts. We've been doing this for 4 years. We've been meeting every Tuesday night. And tonight is going to be like no other, because we are going to be talking about how do we manage our LLCs. It's going to be phenomenal. So listen, I am a loan officer for Old Capital Lending. We are a premier provider of debt for multifamily most of the time, but we will help you with other asset classes, industrial, retail, mobile home parks, office, all of those other asset classes we can help you with, but we really are specialists in multifamily. So I would love to have the opportunity to be your multifamily or lender of choice. And if you're looking for a deal and you're thinking, hey, this might work, I would ask you that you send over the T12, the rent roll, your offering memorandum, if you have it, and your underwriting. And I can model it and get it to our underwriters and really give you a sense of where is this going to end up with the lending side, because we are your biggest partner. We're bringing the most amount of money to the transaction. So when you're looking for a partner, it's important that you find somebody you know, like, and trust. And I'm hoping I can help you with that. So again, we have been here 4 years networking and learning from others. You can find people who can help you with cost segregation, insurance, attorneys, syndicators, sponsors, investors. A lot of people are here to help you. So if you're new, it's like building your Rolodex, building your team, all can be found here. So I was really excited when I met Joe Cahill and Anthony Gibbs. Why? Why was I excited? Because I have a problem. I have a problem with trying to keep track of stuff that really doesn't mean a lot to me, but it means a whole heck of a lot to other people. And these things determine who I am, like UCC searches. Okay. So I have quite a few LLCs, and you may too. And if you're up to here with trying to figure out when and how and why and what and who do I pay, you might consider having CSC. And CSC stands for Corporation Service Company. Maybe you have them manage your LLCs, because maybe you're like me and you need a little bit of help. So I called up Joe Cahill. And by the way, Cahill is one of my kids' middle names. So I felt immediately connected with Joe Cahill. He is a corporate consultant with CSC for the last 6 years. He's been working with new and current clients to develop streamlined solutions to improve their corporate governance, responsibilities, and requirements. He assists his clients like me, like you, with setting up their registered agent services, which you have to have with an LLC, their annual reports, business licensing, entity management, and global subsidiary management. He's from Wilmington, Delaware. He was born there, and lives there now, and now works there. He hasn't left. Joe enjoys golfing, fishing, and going to concerts. All right. Well, then we got to meet Anthony Gibbs. Anthony also is from Wilmington in Delaware. And, do we even know where Wilmington, Delaware is? It's probably like a tiny dot. But both of these guys are from there and live there and work there. So Anthony Gibbs is a sales team leader for the law firm team and leads CSC partners, services, sales efforts as well. He has been with CSC for 7 years and has a vast experience with the process of forming and expanding companies, corporate maintenance, and transactions woven into these and those processes. So Anthony's expertise and tenure allows him to understand CSC's capabilities on a large scale to assist clients with varying situation goals and outcomes pertaining to their corporate plans. And here's the thing that I find just the most exciting in this whole discussion is that Anthony is a semi-professional poker player. Has anybody met somebody so fascinating? Well, I want to welcome both Joe and Anthony to tonight's live conversation with our industry experts. Hey guys, welcome to Zoom at 8. How are you?
Good.
Doing well.
Julie, thank you so much for this, the shout out, the intro. We're so excited to be here. It's I guess you and I have been speaking maybe 4 or 5 months now, so we're excited. This is our first Zoom at 8, so thank you so much for having us.
All right, Joe and Anthony, I'm going to hand it over to you. Help us understand what you do, how you can help us. Oh,
yes.
And by the way, everybody, if you would give Joe and Anthony all of your time and effort by going up to view and give them the speaker view.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much. And let me know, I am screen sharing just so we have a presentation we can show you as well. Can you see my screen, Julie?
We can. Yep, you're good to
Wonderful.
go.
So, little background on CSC. I've been with the company 6 years now. It's hard to believe I hit 6 years last week. And when I started, really my role at the company was to help people with just 1 or 2, 3 LLCs. Not only form the company, but get registered into multiple states. So the fact that a lot of the people on this meeting have a few LLCs, this is really kind of my sweet spot. And now Anthony and I have clients that'll have 50, 100 LLCs, with different corporate structures across multiple states. So, who is CSC? I'll go to the next slide here. Let me make sure this works. There we go. So I'll spare you this entire paragraph, but we are in every single state. So no matter where you want to form a company, no matter where you want to get registered, it can be any entity type. So if you need to form an LLC, a corporation, a limited partnership, just know with us, we can set it up in any jurisdiction nationwide, and global. So we have over 7,000 employees. And Anthony and I are right at the headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware, where most of our service team is, but we have offices in every single state. And I just went through this. So we have a global footprint. It's hard to believe, but we have 76 offices now. So in November of this year, we actually acquired a company called Intertrust Group, which some of you might have heard of. So this really strengthened our footprint globally to help with other items such as fund administration, which I'll have Anthony speak to a little later in the call. And these are some of our core values. So when you're working with CSC, you get dedicated service. You have one person you can reach out to when you have a question on an annual report. You'll have a dedicated specialist on our service team. And these are just some of our core values here: tenacity. But I want to get to the meat and potatoes here. So let's see. So how does
and I will tell you guys that Joe, I haven't worked a lot with Anthony, but Joe is phenomenal.
Thank
He
you.
responds extremely quickly. So
I appreciate that.
yeah.
I'm an early bird, so with us, it's when you email me, you're gonna get a response, probably within 3 hours. So when maybe you need a UCC search, maybe you need a formation done right away, you'll get that personal service. So with CSC, we can do registered agent and annual report services, which we'll touch on in a moment. Secretary of State filings, that's kind of the same term as annual reports, but every state calls them something different, which I'll touch on the annual report slide. And we also do business licensing. So outside of annual reports, there's a lot of other license needs we can handle. And then I had mentioned we are global. So what is a registered agent, right? A lot of my clients, they'll come to me and they'll say, Joe, I don't even know what I'm paying for. I don't know what a registered agent is. I just know I have to pay a law firm or a company each year to be an address. So the reason you need to have a registered agent is there has to be somebody, a third party, that is within the state you're doing business to receive legal documents. So the reason clients lean on CSC is, one, if a legal document is ever served on your LLC, it's going to come to our office. We're going to receive that legal document and we're going to notify you the same day. You'll get an award-winning portal too, where you'll get to view all of your service of process. But the reason you really don't want yourself as a registered agent is you have to be there during normal business hours, right? So if you're out at lunch or maybe you take a vacation for a week, there has to be somebody there in case a deputy or the state comes out to receive legal documents. So when you have CSC as a registered agent, we're going to get it to you same day. We're going to go so far as to make sure that you've opened the document. So if Julie, if you were served and I saw if our team has seen that you haven't went in and acknowledged the document, we're going to continue to badger you until you open that. And the reason being is we never want you to miss a default judgment. We never want you to miss the deadline with these courts.
Okay,
And then
one
sure,
question. Sorry to jump in here,
not
but
at all.
Charlie asks, what if you're not there? What if the deputy, the sheriff comes to your house and you're
Yeah.
not there? Tell us what that would look like.
So I've seen this before. In some states, and every state's different, they might not even leave it. So they might not leave the document. If you're not there, and then they might have to come out again. So that's the risk you take when you're your own registered agent. I mean, it's possible they might leave it in your mailbox, right? But there's the possibility is if you're your own agent and you're not there, they might not leave it, and you might never receive it. So that's a wonderful question. And for the price we charge, which is a nominal fee, that's really why clients lean on us. Is you don't want to be there 8 to 5. You want to be doing what you do best with these multi-tenant houses. So that's a great question. You don't know, you don't know what'll happen. So that's why clients lean on us to be the registered agent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, great question. And then before I pass it to Anthony, I want to touch on annual reports because I know this was one of the biggest pain points for most of my clients. And when I kind of meant to talk to Julie about this kind of excited her as well. So in every state, when you have an LLC, the state requires you to file an annual report. And what that is, it's basically a one pager that tells the state you're doing business. So for an LLC, it would tell you your principal place of business, member manager information, EIN number, fiscal year end. So every year you must file an annual report and pay the Secretary of State a fee to keep your entity in good standing. Now, the problem with this is the states don't make it easy. They all call it something different. Where I am in Delaware, right? Where Wilmington, Delaware, the small speck on the map next to Pennsylvania, we call it a franchise tax. And so a lot of these terms are confusing. So in Delaware, their annual report's called a franchise tax. In Texas, they call it a public information report, which coincides with a franchise tax. Julie, where you are, they call it a statement of information. So the problem is every state has a different term for their annual report. They all have a different fee. Some states are more expensive than others, and they all have their different due dates. In Delaware, an LLCs due June 1. Some states base it on when you incorporated in the state. So the reason that clients lean on CSC is one, we're going to proactively manage for all of your LLCs and all the states are doing business when that annual report's coming due. So you'll have full visibility, and our platform's called the CSC Navigator, which, after the call, you can always reach out to me. I'll do a demo for you personally. But you can see all the due dates, all the deadlines, whose responsibility it is. And you can lean on us for filing those. So 60 days in advance, we will let you know what state annual report's coming due. And then we're going to prepare the annual report. We're going to file it with the Secretary of State. And we're even going to cut the check for you. So you don't even need to mail in the payment to the state. So the great thing about using CSC to do the annual compliance reports is you're never going to miss one. All of your LLCs will remain in good standing, and you won't have to pay penalties. I can't tell you how many times over the last 6 years I've approached prospects or clients and they don't even know their LLC is forfeited with the comptroller office in Texas. So that's really the biggest value add of with CSC is let us do the work on the back end. We'll keep your LLCs in compliance, and we also will give you copies of all the work we do. So even though we're doing them, you're never in the dark of what's been filed, and you can access all of them right through the portal. Now I'll stop there. I did a lot of talking before I pass the next slide to Anthony, but are there any questions, Julie, in the chat? Anything on the annual reports?
I don't have any comments, but I would tell you that this, while you're going to pay a little bit to have someone else do it,
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten, late payments. I've had to pay late fees. It saves you time, energy, and focus. Focus
Yep.
on what you do best and let them take it from there for you. When I found out about CSC, I thought the heavens had opened. It is fantastic. And I just love the idea that each state has a different reference to this annual report. I never knew that. And I was
Mm-hmm.
going through all of our paperwork. And if this is not your area of expertise, guys, again, hand this off to somebody else. Okay, so Charlie had a question. What is the
Mm-hmm.
annual fee for CSC to be the registered agent per LLC?
Sure.
And can you do this in any state? Candace asks.
Yep, that's a great question. So the first question is we're competitive in the market with pricing. We'll never lose business compared to some of these smaller vendors. So the registered agent fee, it varies depending on the number of LLCs you have, but it could be anywhere from, 100 to 200, 250 a state. We'll always work with you to make sure it financially works with you, right? So if you approach us and have 10 LLCs, we'll offer you relationship pricing based on your volume, service. So the registered agent fees are, very nominal. And then the annual report fee, it's a little, it'll mirror the registered agent. So if we have a conversation, in next week and look at, the number of LLCs, we'll work with you on pricing. And then to answer the second question, we can do them in every single state. We're actually, one of the only vendor that can prepare and file them in all 50 jurisdictions, including DC, including Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we will do them in every state. There are some states that are a little more complex. I always like to joke and call them the headache states, right? So one state being Illinois is one where it's not your basic member manager information. They might need you to do gross revenue on their annual report. So in those states that have more financial regulation, your dedicated annual report specialists will reach out to you to simply gather that information, but then we can go ahead and file it. So to answer your question, we can help you in every single state.
So if somebody lives in California, they have 2 Wyoming LLCs,
Mm-hmm.
do they also need to register in California?
It's a wonderful question. So I'll answer that in two parts. While we are a service company, we can't technically give legal advice, right? Because we would be doing you, an injustice to say, give you legal advice. But what I will say is from experience is if you have a Wyoming LLC, but you simply live in California, you might not need to get registered. If you're not doing business in California, if you don't have revenue or employees in California, there's a good chance that you don't need to get registered. And that's one thing with CSC is the trust that we provide to our clients. We would never steer you wrong. Every year we put out a guide to doing business, which I can send over to you, Julie. And if you
That'd be
want to,
great.
but it really sheds light on what constitutes doing business. So it's not legal guidance, but it's a very educated guide that says, hey, if you're doing this activity within this state, you probably should get registered with the Secretary of State. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but we'll work with you, and we'll provide honest experience on what we see from our clients if you should get registered without just saying, go ahead and get registered just to make a sale.
Yeah. So Christian, I did change all of my LLCs. I've got them in Wyoming. I have them in Delaware, I think, Texas. So when you contact CSC, they will handle all of the switching the registered agents over to CSC. It is easy as peasy. You
Yep.
just tell them, hey, this is what I want to do. They send out information to your current registered agents,
Hmm.
and you never look back. So Joe, is that
Yeah.
is that
No, you hit the nail on the head, and we'll send the breakup letter, right? So if you don't want to reach out to your current vendor, we will send that. So I'll speak on that on two parts. One, if you're in more than 10 states, so if your LLCs, let's say you have 5 LLCs in 3 states each, and you're at 15, right? Whenever you have more than 10 states that you're doing business or registered with the Secretary of State, we do a complimentary audit. So you could come to us and say, Joe, we're registered in these 10 states. The first thing we do is we uncover where they are, the current status, right? Because we want to make sure everything's in good standing before we switch it. And we'll also find out who the registered agent is, because sometimes you might not even know. It might be, John Doe who retired. It might be a law firm. So we'll do an audit for you. We'll uncover who you're with, and then exactly what Julie said. We'll be the ones to notify the Secretary of State. We'll make the change of agent filing, and then we will send your vendor proof. So to do a change of agent, it's as simple as signing a pricing agreement once we're at that step, and then just sending me a list of your entity names.
Yeah, great,
Hmm.
great. I thought I could do this myself. I got rid of my registered agent saying I can do this. Remember, people, that's what got me into a lot of problems, that I said I can do this all by myself. I can be a multifamily apartment owner with no help from no partners. So you can't do this yourself. It really doesn't work that way. I think Pamela had a question. I think this is probably along the same lines, as most of us have created LLCs in states where we don't live. So
Hmm.
do you need to file? How does that filing work in that case? And do you need to have it both where you're living? Do you have to create a new one where you're living? How does that work? And is that probably also another attorney question or
Sure.
CPA question?
Sure. Anthony, do you want to take that one, or?
Sure, sure thing. So it sounds like Pamela is actually asking about the annual reports. Stating that, in the LLCs that she's created in the foreign jurisdictions, how do the annual report filings work? And certainly, Pamela, if I'm understanding it correctly, do let me know. But you would just be filing an annual report in the Secretary of State or jurisdiction that the company actually exists or the LLC is actually registered. So if that happens to be in a foreign state, we just spoke about Deepaki. He has 2 Wyoming LLCs and he's in California. He would just be filing those annual reports in Wyoming. There wouldn't be anything to file in California because he's not registered with that Secretary of State. So I certainly hope that does answer your question.
I will tell you, California, the great state of California said nobody. wants their $800 from everybody. So they're going to
Yep.
look for ways to get you to say, yes, I'm doing business in California one way or another. So the way I've structured it is I have one LLC here and the rest of them are out. Now, people, keep in mind that when you work with a lender may say, I need you to have coverage or your LLC to be coming from a certain state. That's why I have a Wyoming, because simply the lender said that's where we want it from. So it will depend on how these are used and who is asking. You know, it'll come down to your org chart as well. You'll see that identified. So yeah. All right, let's keep going. Keep
Yeah.
going.
Perfect. And these are just some of the other Secretary of State filings that we do. And I want to pass it to Anthony on the next couple of slides to talk about some of our capital market services. But you know, in addition to Secretary of State filings, if you need to form an LLC, we do that. If you need to qualify it into a new jurisdiction, we can help with that. Sometimes you have to do an amendment. So maybe a member manager leaves an LLC and you need to update that with the Secretary of State. You can let us do the amendment filing to do that update. Maybe you're doing business in California and you don't want to pay that $800. You're not, you know, you're not doing much business there and you want to get out of California. We can withdraw you from that state. And then finally, we do help with mergers and acquisitions of companies. So if you convert from an LLC to a corp or vice versa, or merge entities, you know, we can assist with that. And then of course, you know, document retrieval as well. So
Curious.
so if you need any
DBA,
DBA.
doing business. Will you guys do that as well?
Yeah, so many of our clients will come to me and say, "Hey, Joe, we want to set up as, let's say, Old Capital Lending LLC, but maybe we want to be called Jolie Capital in Texas. We want a fictitious name, right? Maybe it sounds better. Maybe it's just something you have to use. We can do all the doing business as names, you know, for you. So
That's
anytime you need a fictitious name,
that's a
and so,
savings. You don't have to go to the Secretary of State and
yeah.
stand in line and watch all the weddings going on while you're standing there waiting and waiting and waiting. Okay, great. Keep going.
No, and as you know, you know, some of these, when you try to get on the line with the Secretary of State, they're not always the best. You know, sometimes they're not the ones you know, answering the answer. You might be on the phone for 2 hours. So that's why most clients leave it to CSC. So I want to stop there. I want to give Anthony some time to really focus on some of our additional services that we have to offer here in the capital markets and lending space. So, Anthony, I will pass it over to you.
Thanks so much, Joe. Do appreciate it. So, of course, you know, Joe spent you know, a great amount of time talking about the, you know, registration services, kind of the Secretary of State services that we provide. But you know, as you can see here, there are an abundance of, you know, other services that CAC provides. And as you were all going around, you know, I heard many of you speak about LPs, GPs, you know, funds that you may be dealing with, you know, of course, you know, working in the lending space as well. So we do have services that support, you know, all sides of capital markets, you know, both from the lending and borrowing space. And then also, you know, for our fund solutions, we do have fund services. You know, one of the unique things about CSC and funds and our fund services is that generally, you know, when you are, you know, working with any other fund service provider, um, you know, they're owned by, or they may have, you know, some type of um, conflict is the word I'm looking for, conflict with a capital company. And CSC is, of course, you know, privately owned. So there are no conflicts that we have here. You know, but just wanted to also speak about some of the other services that we provide. just surrounding some of those things, some of the real estate items that many of you might run into a little bit more. So of course, independent director and springing member services. We offer trust services with Delaware statutory trusts, things of that nature. So, definitely a wide scale and large plethora of services that we have. I did have a question for the group. I know I had, or we heard a few individuals state that they had, upwards of 1,200 entities, others that stated that they had, maybe hundreds. I did have the question of, if any of you are managing those entities directly, or, how you're going about managing those entities if you are.
Oh, that is a great question. Anybody here pipe up who have these large number of LLCs?
And it can honestly be anyone. The larger LLCs, I would certainly be interested to know if you have any hand in the management of that portfolio. But just wondering if anyone here actually is in direct management of the entities, keeping them in compliance and things of that nature.
Guilty as charged.
All right, Sean. So are you actually filing the annual reports on your own?
Yeah, I just signed up on your website to have somebody reach out.
Well, actually,
love it.
Joe can give you a hand. So, it's that way you don't have to go far to get that help. But, the other thing too is managing these entities and where they are located in the jurisdictions. That's something that sometimes gets overlooked as far as how much time that takes us to either go and take a look at the Secretary of State record, or even finding a particular entity in the portfolio that we're managing. A lot of times I run into clients that are using spreadsheets and things of that nature to manage entities, and certainly the CSC Navigator that we provide, the entity management platform that we provide is able to allow you to manage those entities at a much larger scale, much more efficient scale. So thanks so much for being brave there, Sean. Is there anyone else that is currently involved in any capacity with either managing their LLCs, or with any of the other products that I mentioned? Maybe some of the individuals that spoke about the funds that they manage and the LPs that they work with, things of that nature.
Charles Lemire, what do you do?
Oh, you had to out me, didn't you?
Mhm.
Okay, I've got a couple of LLCs. It's
Only
owned-
100, but yeah,
Huh? What? No, 2 LLCs.
really? That's it.
And it has family members in it. I manage it on a spreadsheet. So laugh at me if you will. And
No, not at all.
As for the filings, my CPA does the filings for me.
Okay. Do you pay your CPA anything to handle
Of course
those?
I did pay him. He extracts money through the nose, but he saves me a lot of taxes, so he's worth it.
Understood. No,
Very good.
it's definitely completely fine. When you have two entities, and certainly when those annual reports are being managed. Do you know who the registered agent is for your entities, Charles?
Me.
You. Okay. All right.
So
But
we're
no,
going
I'm
knocking on
only
your
a
door.
passive. I'm not,
Yeah.
out there getting sued every day. I'm not likely to get hit. I mean, it could happen, but it's highly unlikely. I'm just, I'm very passive in the thing. I just collect the checks, go out to the mailbox. I have to worry about the paper cuts on opening the checks.
Sure.
Hey, Charles, there's been this new discovery. It's called ACH deposit.
When we get to later, after these fellas talk all they want to, ask me about that, and I'll tell you a story about ACH. I think it's hilarious.
All right. Is there anything else that we're going to cover tonight before we talk about something special that Joe and Anthony, you wanted to discuss with the group?
Anything else on your side, Anthony, or?
Oh, no, it was just it was actually just these items here.
I thought there might be something that you're offering the folks that are here at Zoom at 8.
Yes.
I
Okay.
thought so. We're
Yeah.
leaving the
So
best for last.
Yep.
you're right, Julie. And the reason for that is because, we thought that most of this crowd or a lot of this crowd may not be incorporated, may need to form their first LLC. So we created a promo code for anyone who needed to take that step. And that promo code was going to be Zoom at 8 at our incorporate.com platform. But then we heard all of these business professionals on the line here with multiple LLCs in the real estate business for a very long time. So Joe and I had to pivot here to something that may be more palatable for our audience here.
Okay. So if somebody needs to do an incorporation though, is that
Mhm.
what you're saying?
Yes. So if they need to incorporate a company, they can go to incorporate.com and choose their state, their package, and then use the code Zoom at 8. So ZOOMAT, and then the number 8 to get $25 off.
$25 off, you guys. Isn't that fantastic? We don't get offers like this very often, so
And
I'm
I am
grateful.
going to put it in the chat. Let me triple check that this is the correct code. It's been a
I
long
got you,
day.
Joe. I
Thank you.
got you.
But and as Anthony it's mentioned too, if you have LLCs currently, if you're already established, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to us, and we'll work with you personally to make sure that we're fitting your budget, we're fitting your financial goals. So but the great thing is if you need to form an LLC, we'll give you $25 off. So let me just check here.
I love that, you guys.
Yeah.
That is so fantastic. There's people in the room, there's people that are listening that need this assistance. And I recommend, again, I'm using these guys personally because I can't, and I want to get out of managing my own stuff here. I'm done with overpaying for the late fees and all of that. So again, if you want to get an LLC, reach out to Joe, reach out to Anthony. I think it's probably just Joe. Joe left his email. Also, if you're going to connect with anybody in the room, especially Joe and Anthony, and you go to their LinkedIn page, please send them a note and says, hey, I saw you on Zoom at 8. Then they know you're not somebody trying to sell them something. Connect with them, make a relationship. Okay. Very, very important.
I just got an email from Sean, so thank you so much. I'll be reaching out tomorrow to schedule some time with you.
That's great. I love that. All right. Charlie had a question, and then we're going to get to our next phase of Zoom at 8. Is there different reporting requirements for S Corp versus S Corp and disregarded entities? Good question.
You want to take that, Anthony?
Yeah. So are you speaking about the Secretary of State level, Charles? Or Charlie, sorry.
Yeah, S Corp versus C Corps and disregarded entities.
Yeah, so they're actually all going to, so C Corps and S Corps are going to report exactly the same. They're just going to report as a corporation for the annual reports. And then with disregarded entities, those are typically LLCs. So with LLCs, they'll have slightly different reporting requirements in certain jurisdictions, but they're going to follow the same rules as all other LLCs in the jurisdiction.
Okay, so can you perhaps clarify for me?
Sure.
When you have an LLC that's disregarded, single member, and then you can vouch for it to be S Corp, does C corporations have to be LLCs, or are there other entities outside of an LLC that can be C Corps?
Yeah.
No. So this will help, right? So you have the first two structures, right, which is the LLC and the C corporation. Those are the first two structures, and from there you can deviate. But a corporation can never become an LLC. An LLC can never become a corporation unless a conversion is done, and then they're completely switching their entity type. When an LLC goes to become an S corporation, really what they're doing is electing to file their taxes as an S corporation with the IRS. So they're filing what's called the Form 8832. So that just allows them to file their taxes a certain way, but with the Secretary of State, they're still going to be filing as an LLC. Whereas with a C corporation, you have to file the Form 2553 if you want to file taxes as an S corporation. And the reason that C corps normally take that step with the S corporation is to avoid double taxation. So when the S corp is there, or I'm sorry, the S corp designation is there, it allows them to be taxed once as a pass-through entity, just at the shareholder level. Instead of with a C corp, you get taxed at the shareholder level plus the corporate level. The company itself is taxed.
Okay. When we do the breakouts, I'm guessing Joe and Anthony are hanging around. Julie, if it's possible, could you just put me in the room with Anthony? I just have a few other questions to take offline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, again, Zoom at 8, Zoom at 8, ZOOM8 is what you want to put into the promo code for $25 off, you guys, for those of you who are going to need an LLC. Uh-oh. I tried to turn my screen share off. Is it still on, Joe?
Yeah, I was asking, I tried to turn the screen share off. I just want to make sure it is off.
You're good.
Okay,
Yep, you're
awesome.
all good.
Thank you.
Don't be picking your nose in public now. Okay. All right.
I'll make
All
sure
right.
that
Before we go, I'm going to give you one last call. Anybody have a question before we go? Because we need to network. This is why we show up, not only to get industry experts and get in live with them and ask your question, because you may be going to a conference and see these guys and you don't want to ask the question. So there's no pressure. If you want to ask a question, let's do it now. Anybody? Chase? Are you sleeping again?
I was Snapchatting, sorry.
Oh, okay, Snapchatting. Okay, good.
But listening.
Okay. Anybody else? No pressure. All right. Well, Joe and Anthony, I hope you can stay
Yeah.
for our breakout sessions. But again, thank you so much for joining us at Zoom at 8. And anybody using CSC will be very happy with the services that they provide. I know I have, and they're like peanut butter. You just want to spread them around. So
thank you so much, everyone. We truly appreciate it. And I'll hang around, but we're grateful for everybody's time tonight. So thank you.